Eh, ya invitamos a Jason Amor. Amor, ayúdame con hacer el enlace con Jason. Ok. Ujú. Hola, ¿cómo están? Estamos esperando un minuto para que llegue Jason.
Dile en inglés que manda la solicitud que está aquí arriba para unirse al envío. Él está ahí conectado.
Jason Polins, how are you, man? Please send me uh, the signal to join us. Hey, Nathan, how are you?
Mira, tiene que ver esto. Yo le
Hey,
Hello, Jason, how are
I'm all
you?
right. I'm all right. How's it going?
Uh, can you rotate the camera to see you? Oh, that's the way. How are you, man? Nice to meet you.
It's good to meet you too, man. This is all right. I'm glad that we pulled this together in short notice.
Okay, nice. We're waiting the people to join us. Maybe some minutes, maybe 5 minutes, and let's start. So I'm going to say hello in Spanish. Uh, for people who do not understand in English, I'm going to translate it in Spanish later. And as I told you, I'm going to upload this on other platforms. All right. So I'm going to say hello in Spanish, right?
Yep.
Bueno, hola a todos. Es un gusto estar conectados aquí con Jason. Jason Polins es un pintor que conocí a través de Instagram, precisamente aprovechando las tecnologías del momento y todo ese impulso digital. Es un pintor que descubrí de alguna manera cuando mi profe o alguien me aconsejó mirar la pintura de Giorgio Morandi. Entonces, de ahí se hizo pues como el enlace. Entonces vamos a esperar un poco para que se conecten más personas y comenzamos. 2 minutos. ¿Qué horas tenemos? Bien, 2 minuticos, ya un minutico y empezamos. So I'm saying to the people that I meet you through Instagram,
Yep.
and because of someone advised me to see the painting of Giorgio Morandi, then at the feed I saw your work, and I said, oh, man, hey, this guy is contemporary Morandi. I want to talk with him.
Thanks.
So that's why I invited you.
Yeah.
And as I told you, for me it's very difficult to talk about painting because maybe here there's not such a big audience, and a difference what we can perceive maybe in Europe or in North America.
Yep.
Here there's a lot of mixed ideas around painting, and that's why I want to create this kind of community. not only in Spanish, but in English and any other language. And I really appreciate this effort that you are doing, because it's very good to me to meet other painters that love painting, or what I feel that you love painting as I
Yeah,
love it.
absolutely.
And maybe in that sense we can seduce the other people to paint, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, what you're talking about, you know, I think that I'd actually like to talk for a moment about like Instagram, because, you know, you and I, Jose, we wouldn't know each other if it weren't for Instagram. We just wouldn't, you know. I mean, maybe at some point we'd find each other online somehow. We'd see each other's work. I don't know, you know. But this format, this platform has been monumental for my ability to meet people throughout this pandemic, and to be able to show more people what I do. You know, to be able to talk to individuals or groups, or, you know, now you and I, right here, right now. I agree. It's, you know, we definitely have a connection with our interest in painting, not just painting, but I think also the roots by which what we enjoy in painting, the types of painters that we like, I think are very similar, and hopefully also different. But I really love being on Instagram to be able to promote myself, but also to promote the opportunity for community. And I think that's what you were just talking about, is doing these kinds of interviews in order to connect with more people. And in doing that, we get to have a broader community of individuals that we know. I mean, what else is there? You know?
Yeah, even that's the main idea of modernism, to the ability to spread the ideas over the world. In the past, maybe on the newspapers and some prints and books and so on. And right now we're having this technology, and it's a privilege, I think,
Yeah.
to our to our to promote our painting. Maybe in the same way, it's going to be difficult to go beyond, to get famous, because there's a lot of information. So, for instance, I could catch, because I had a question about Morandis. So I saw you, and I saw a lot of profiles. But you, in those terms, because my idea, my question, I saw you. So there are some advantages and those disadvantages because of the technology, but it's okay.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you want to, let's start with I have a list.
Excellent.
A checklist about questions to guide our conversation, you know, our talk. If you want to show us some paintings, we're going to appreciate your work. It's definitely a perfect idea.
Yeah.
And as I told you, I made a kind of interview to the Spanish master Sabidenia in the past in Spanish, and I'm going to continue with this.
Excellent.
All right. So for me, it's the perfect day, the perfect date, and so on. So, hello. We are today with a special guest named Jason Polins, and he's going to talk about painting with me, the art that we love. And let's start with the ask and answer. So. Let's tell a little bit about you. Who Jason Polins is?
I'm just a guy in a room making pictures. Sometimes I'm outside making pictures. Sometimes I'm inside making pictures. But No, I come from Boston, Massachusetts, where I live in a suburb of Boston, Somerville, Mass. I've grown up being invested in the arts since I was probably 12 or so. My parents introduced me to it, and I just kind of, I don't know, I didn't want to stop, I guess, clearly. um, but I went to a few different places to learn what I do. Kind of, I went to Boston University for my undergraduate, which was about drawing and painting, sculpture, art history. But I really didn't feel too fulfilled by that education, so I wanted to move beyond it, and I wanted to dig deeper. So I found in Florence, Italy, a place called the Florence Academy of Art, which is still there, and they've been prospering through the years, and they opened up a few other locations, I think in Sweden, and also in Jersey City outside of New York. So they're a tremendous place now, and they were then too. I was just there very early. And they were a real, they were the education I was really looking for. So, you know, I spent 2.5 or 3 years there. I graduated. When I was done, I really had this overwhelming feeling that I should just go back to Boston. I was thinking about staying in Italy at the time, but I came back to Boston. Throughout that time, when I was at Boston University, I also met some other painters, a few people that studied with what's called the Boston School, which is a group of people, a group of men and women that were around in sort of the turn of the century from the 1700s into the 1800s and throughout a lot of the 1800s, actually early 1800s on, so 19th century painters. And people, you know, connected to those people are people like Edmund Tarbell, oh God, now I'm going to forget everybody's name. Benson is a painter. Ives Gamble is a painter that's connected to that. Even Sargent is connected to that. John Singer Sargent. More on the periphery. I mean, they all knew each other because the Boston area and Sargent was here and stuff. But so some of the people that I invested time and energy with learned from this fellow named Ives Gamble, who had learned from Edmund Tarbell and, you know, Frank Benson and these amazing painters that I had been looking at since I was like a kid. I was just looking at these people, not knowing who they were. So I got some education with a few individuals from there. There's a fellow named Gary Hoffman that I have spent years connecting with, and he's amazing. He's kind of lost in the wilderness painting at this point right now. But he's a tremendous fellow and someone that is my mentor still. And I even was able to study with a couple of other people that were connected with the Boston School, and that was a great thing. So when I went to Italy, I was really thinking about this. Even the Florence Academy is connected to the Boston School painters. So it was really something that made a lot of sense for me. It really like brought home a lot of ideas. You know?
You say something very, very important, because when you told me that you entered to the university, to the undergraduate degree to do the education, and you were not, you think that you do not fit on that. You go into another academy that is more traditional on art,
yeah.
Right? Is that the reason why you do not feel fulfilled with that kind of education? Because maybe the contemporary art and modern art forgot or brought up a lot with the traditional, so you went to Italy to understand the past,
Yeah.
right? That was the reason.
Yep.
And in that sense, what do you think about the contemporary art?
I mean, all right, it's really interesting. It depends on what contemporary art we kind of talk about. I will say this before I answer this in a funny way. I don't think that any type of expression should be excluded except for if it's some form of violence unto others and things like that. You know, I just want to say that, but I'm pretty accepting of any kind of art form. You know, I don't particularly enjoy things that are what they call abstract art, from like splashes of color on canvas. They don't do much for me, and they feel kind of, I don't know, sometimes I like them if I look at them, I don't know, but most of the time they feel a little bit minuscule or just too haphazard, so I can't really connect to it. And it's like, oh well, I could look at a bunch of sticks on the side of the road and it's the same idea. But I don't mean to minimize it, it's just I don't connect to it very well. But I really appreciate that it exists. There are so many people out there looking for an outlet, and everyone's outlet winds up being fairly personal. So when I see that these people are out there making these splashes of color, and they're very expressive, you know, as you can tell, and I'm proud to know that they're there, because they are being given validity for what they're doing, and that makes room for me to be valid in others' eyes for what I'm doing. There's room for everybody to express themselves, and there should be.
Yeah.
And you know, that's kind of how I feel. I mean, I don't, you know, it's not that you have to appreciate everything. I do not appreciate every form of art. I have no interest in appreciating every form of art. Some things I'll totally shoot down, and I don't care that I shoot it down because I have my own personal opinion. But I still appreciate the fact that these things exist. The range of creativity out there is important, because we need to, like you said before, we want to inspire people to do this stuff more. And even what you said, I don't think you meant to do it in this one way, you know? So I think it's really important to inspire people to find better ways to express themselves than through, let's say, like violence or prejudice, or, you know, do it artistically. Like, get it down. Even be prejudiced in your artwork. Who the fuck cares? Sorry.
Don't worry, don't worry. So you talked a very important topic, that is the way, artistic way.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you something about that, artistic meaning and the methodology of the academy.
Sure.
Because someday I was hearing an interview from a guy that, as you study at the Florence Academy of Art. I forgot the name, but it was an interview of a student of Otto Nerdrum. Of Nerdrum, the Norwegian painter. Nerdrum. Do you know him?
Yeah, I don't know him, but I know the name. Yeah.
He paints kind of apocalyptic surrealism. He's a contemporary artist, but it's a professional painter. So the guy said that when he was at the Florence Academy, they put a lot of effort on technique and precision. So these dots over here, a lot of measurement.
Yes, measurement.
Nice things, perspective, a lot of effort that way. And maybe, and every stroke is a plane. Yeah. Every stroke of painting is a plane. So like William Bouguereau's painters and all that Academy of Classical tradition. And he said that maybe that kind of methodology limits a little bit the creativity and imagination. That, for instance, when he saw paint for the first times of Nerdrums, that is considered a master, he said he begins with a circle. And a lot of talking over there, and all of a sudden, voila, the big fish in a beautiful way that is now related to the methodological step-by-step process. So that's in one side. Yeah. And in other side, for instance, I was reading a book named The Science and Arts of Drawing. I think it's an England book, and they put a lot of they emphasize that when the traditional way is very important to acquire a kind of technique and technique skills. the artistic way of drawing is something that is very difficult to teach.
Yeah.
And when because I went to Europe, and I was in the atelier of realist art in Barcelona, that even that was in the same circle of the ARC Arts Renewal Center that's in Canada, in Boston, the ARA
Yep.
Boston Academy, and when I saw my classmates, they almost drawing as the same mind, the same hand, like no difference between
Right.
them. So when I saw the drawings, hey, she draw in the same way that he drew it. So there was no difference in style. What do you think about that? This kind of methodology limits a little bit the creative imagination, or how do you? And if yes or not, how do you solve it?
So I'll say it this way. My experience at like the Florence Academy of Art was very much about that. It was a site-sized school. I went in and I had to make an actual choice that I was here for this and no other way of thinking. And I was okay with that. And I did the site-size process, which is a very limiting process from my perspective. And when I got out of that experience, I didn't know sort of what I learned yet. You know, I was like a soldier being told orders and accomplishing the orders. And I was being told when I was done, and I was being told what I would do next. And I was okay with it then. I didn't have a problem with that. And I think it's actually valuable because, there's a lot of technical know-how that is hard to impart. In fact, the only way we learn technique is through experience. We have to do things, and we have to be told what the difference is between this and this, you know? Like, we have to be shown. People need to demonstrate for us. There needs to be a dialogue. And I think when I was in school, there wasn't as much dialogue. There were dialogues. There was plenty of talking going on, but it wasn't like what we have right now, a back and forth. It was more of you're going to do this, and this is why it's good, and so get to it, and why aren't you doing it, kind of a thing. Which, again, it was useful. I really got a lot out of it. I don't teach that way, though, nowadays. So I'll just tell you a tiny bit more about myself and like my evolution, because I think it matters for this question. When I graduated and I came back to Boston, I actually spent 4 or 5 months in Canada, and I was doing master copies at the National Museum that's in Ottawa, and the National Gallery in Ottawa. And I was having a fantastic time. And then it was actually my fiance at the time, and we came back to Boston, and we lived a life together for a while, and now we're apart, but we're still very good friends, I will say that. But in that time when I was in Canada, I came back to Boston, I wound up finding someone else that I wanted to study with, who I had known of since I was about 15, and his name is Nelson Shanks. And Nelson Shanks is out of Philadelphia, and he is, I don't know if you know who he is, but you should look up Nelson Shanks, and so should the folks that are watching this. Nelson is one of the most tremendous painters I think I'll ever meet. World-renowned painter. He painted portraits of Pope John Paul II, or Margaret Thatcher, Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton, Princess Diana. A favorite of mine is a scientist named E.O. Wilson. He painted him here in Boston, and I helped him. So Nelson taught what's called basically comparative painting. And that's something that I had been doing on my own before I got to Nelson, for many years, for several years. And I think that the atelier style of doing things with almost no self persona is a blessing and a curse. And I think a lot of people get stuck in that groove. They never understand how to move beyond. And I think what happens is you can fall into just being a technician. And technicians can do fabulous work, but they're lacking something. I'm not sure what, and it's not one thing. It's something that we all lack something. I mean, but when it comes to art, I think that it really has to come from that really true place. I mean, even if I'm going to paint like a cherry, a single cherry with a stem on it, just sitting on a little desk, I really want to paint it because I'm imagining how it tastes or feels in my fingers, or the space it occupies in my mouth, or the reverence of this thing that grew from nature and developed over millennia to come here to be able to feed me. And you know, and if you're just looking at it like technically blah blah blah, you know, it misses something. So when I got out of school, I was very much a technician, and I didn't really understand how to move forward from there. And I think that actually does partially come down to life, like living life. You know, like go and smack your face on the cement 10 times. Go and take a trip and get lost in the jungle somewhere. You know, like find your way out. I don't know, anything. It doesn't have to be dangerous. It doesn't have to be tragic, but just live, experience, you know, start to get, you know, getting to know our own families in a better way is living, you know, and seeing them as people is giving me fuel for coming into my studio, being alone and working. So
you are saying something very interesting, because the importance of connection, to interact with people and to get that feedback, to show up your art and get the feedback like a collective intelligence. And it's something that obviously we, or maybe a lot of artists, prefer to be alone. We are in some lonely career. But yes, we have to say that it's very important to move, get used to be alone and to show the work to others.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if they're going to criticize you, or even that critics is going to build you up.
Yeah.
If it is good or bad, you need that feedback. And in the other hand, you told me a little bit. I am forgetting the question.
Yeah, we'll get to them. I'm all yours. Don't worry.
So, even when you talk, I'm trying to connect to remember what I wrote, but it's okay. So, for instance, when you say that when you are going to paint, you try to touch that with your mind, to translate the three-dimensional view that you are focusing on it, like eating the form. And so, talk a little bit about your process in painting. How is your ritual? How do you begin? How do you prepare your support? What kind of support did you choose? How is that? How is your palette? So let's talk about the process in painting.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, when I start something, I mean, I've been painting a lot of landscapes and still lives. Sometimes I work from the figure lately, but actually it's all from photography because of COVID-19. We can't really have models and stuff. So, I mean, I guess I could, but you know, it's tough. It's a tough time. But I prefer to work from life no matter what, if I can. But I do understand how to work from photography. And the reason for that is because I know how to work from life. When you work from life, there's so much information in front of you. It's infinite, the amount of information. If it were terabytes of information, reality represents infinity terabytes. A photograph represents like 5 terabytes. Yeah.
Reality is continuous in time.
Yeah.
And for that, you have to put a frame.
Right. Exactly. So I set things up, and I really do take time to do that. You know, even setting up like a plaster cast to paint or draw, I give it the time I need to see it the way I want to. the setting, the lighting, the position up or down, to the left or the right. Am I, you know, how am I seeing this? And I really am considering the turn of it, so to speak. So you can imagine, like, even setting up a more complex still life, it can take a lot of time. I really love narrative and I love metaphor. So when I'm painting anything, I really do want to invest in the meaning of something, or the hidden meaning, or how I relate to it, or how I can relate this to you or anyone else. So I don't figure that out all the time, at one moment. It happens throughout the whole life cycle of creation. Things move, things get replaced. Um, Better shapes have better meaning. And I don't know that until I know that. So I remain very open to change. And I try not to like really pin it down. And, you know, I mean, I don't know if that answers it. That doesn't answer it all, but, you know, it gives you an idea.
Yeah, yeah. For instance, let's talk a little bit about Morandis. So, who are your references in art? Who is your hero?
Oh, my one real hero. Do I have one? I do not have one real hero. Yeah, here's one off the top of my head. This is the easier one to say. There's a painter. His name is Dennis Miller Bunker, and he was actually also a Boston painter. So he was around. He was a good friends with so many different painters of his day. He painted with Sargent a whole bunch. They were great, great friends. Dennis Miller Bunker, he did portraits, landscapes, some still lifes, interiors with people in them. There was a show at the museum probably, I want to say like maybe 20 years ago or 15 years ago or something. And it was amazing. That show was up for a whole month and a half or 2 months. I went every day to go see that show. I would just stare at these paintings and just like cry because they're so beautiful. You know, I love people like Vermeer or Velasquez. I love Velasquez. I mean, who can't, you know? I really.
In a sentence, why do you love Velasquez?
What do I think about it?
Why do you love
Oh,
him?
yeah, okay. I love the paintings of Velasquez because he's thinking about the things that, from my perspective, he is thinking about those shapes and why they are. He's thinking about these people and who they are. You know, I mean, you know, his portrait of Juan, he is thinking about that individual. That was mind-blowing for that time. You know, and he's a peasant, right? He's painting a peasant. I mean, people paid to get their portraits done because they were somebody, you know, and here's this incredibly poignant painter, you know, Velasquez, just painting everything and anything that he can. It is a huge turning point. That was like a metaphorical, psychological turning point from my perspective on what people were capable of expressing. Not doing, but expressing, you know? The collar holding people back had come off. So I like, just look at I'm blanking on the names of like his paintings, but the one with like the table with like the eggs in it, and, you know, and the dish, and yeah. It's like you look at that and he's not just like, oh yeah, there's an egg in a dish and it does like this. He's like his reverence for everything in his paintings. It's like he's elevating everything and giving it relevance and importance. And
you just mentioned and it's still life painting, and it's related to the style, the thing that you decide to create. So let me ask you about that. Why do you prefer still life than paint a human body.
I think maybe just
I'm assuming that. I'm assuming that. If not, you can say
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think that they speak about different things, right? Like the human body, we're all human. So when I look at a human body, there's a lot of psychology that's related to that, and whether it's a man or a woman or a child, it doesn't really matter. There's psychology there. You know, whenever I see a kid, something I'm thinking about is being protective of that individual. When it's an adult, it's like respect or something. You know, and so there's something innately separate from just a still life object that has no personality except the personality I create for it. And so I think that with still life, I think that there's an element of maybe a little bit more of an element of a type of a creativity that's a little bit more about gameplay. You know, just sort of like a child's mind, playing with things and having a little fantasy event occur. You know, but I think that when you couple that with being someone that wants to express something specific, then you can start to really, you know, hone in on like narrative in a different way.
let's back to the Morantes style
Yeah.
of painting. That we already know that he put a lot of to show the objects as an spiritual things, right? Somebody says that when you saw that painting, it's like he were painting almost anything, almost nothing, very silence
Yeah.
In those paintings. And when I tried to make my own research about Morandi, I realized that he saw a lot of Paul Cézanne painting. So, and when Paul Cézanne, you research about Paul Cézanne, he thought about colors as spiritual beings too. So the relations not with objects but with colors, with that spiritual world.
Yeah.
And do you? And that was the kind of philosophy there. So do you are connected with the idea of the spiritual world that supports our reality, or maybe you feel the colors in that way, or what do you think? What's your philosophy on it?
That's a difficult question. I wonder. I mean, I guess I feel like as a human being, I feel like I'm more spiritual. I'm definitely not like very religious. I'm more spiritual, but I don't. I don't have like strong spiritual beliefs either. I think, but like the way that color definitely brings out emotions for me, or helps me focus an emotion in a way. So I think that, you know, my palette has, actually I have a few extra color. I'm looking at my palette right now. I can show off my palette in a little bit if you want. But I generally have strong chromatic colors, and then the reason is they should be strongest out of the tube, and then I can lower the chroma as I use them, because things don't often exist in this like extreme chromatic range. But I think that it is an emotional thing for me, probably is what I would say most. Color relates to emotion. I mean, we describe color as being warm or cool, light or dark, chromatic, like saturated or desaturated, you know. So I think that, you know, it can change one's mood, how the colors appear, or my mood anyway, you know.
What you are saying reminds me what Kandinsky say about colors. He relates colors with music in a synesthesia synesthesical way.
Yeah.
I think that's the word,
Yeah.
synesthesia. And For instance, white was the empty space, the silence, and the high chromatic colors were the very noises.
Yeah.
And I think that your philosophy on that relates to what Kandinsky said about colors.
Yeah.
And let's talk about palette. How do you arrange your colors from left to right?
Sure. You want me to flip I can flip my camera, I think, and show you.
Okay.
Does that work? Yeah, there we go. That's a painting I started. And there's the setup. Yeah, I'm just disconnecting my camera. All right, so here's my palette. So I put my white on the far left, and then this right now, this isn't usually on my palette. It's actually burnt umber, but that's burnt sienna, that's Indian red, alizarin crimson. This is permanent rose. That one is cadmium scarlet. That's actually cadmium orange, which isn't usually on here. I don't know, I thought I'd play with it. I used to use cadmium orange a lot, and I kind of gave up. Yellow ochre, Indian yellow, which doesn't usually exist, but there it is. This is cadmium yellow. Actually, cadmium yellow medium is what that is. This is cadmium lemon. Viridian. This doesn't usually appear here either. It's actually, what is that one? Phthalo turquoise. This is cerulean blue, cobalt blue, ultramarine blue, and then cobalt violet. Cobalt violet. So usually, you know, I arrange my palette actually kind of, it came basically from Nelson, who had far more colors on his palette. And I used to use his colors. There, you know, at most I usually have 10 colors on my palette. There's like an extra 4 or so here. But I always arrange them from dark to light. Sorry, you can't see it. But dark to light, and then it's dark to light. And then right here between yellow and green, it goes sort of light to dark.
Right.
Sorry?
And do you think that colors are related, or those colors that you decide to put on it, are related to your personality, or why, and how do you think that arrangement?
These are definitely, well, they become part of my personality, I would say. But they're there because of their chromatic key. I really do. So this is a split from you know, emotions to science for me, because this represents chemistry. Colors are fundamentally chemistry. I mean, this is oil and pigment put together, and when you mix two together, it's a chemical process, and you know, it's how the pigment comes together, and how light hits that, and how your eye receives it, and how we see the color. So it's like any of these mixtures that I've made are all some sort of chemical, you know, concoction, and that's just pure chemistry. So
do you use a medium to accelerate drying?
Not too much. Lately, I do use turpentine in my little container here, but every now and then I put a little bit of what is it? Gotta look at it. Spike lavender oil. I've been using this. So my turpentine just is for like end of the day, and I just want to rinse off my brushes. But I could also do that in the spike lavender oil. And the spike lavender oil kind of takes the place of turpentine altogether, so that it's just less bad for me, supposedly.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
tend to.
What is that? I used to use liquid.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I used to use that too, and it just gets a little too rubbery. You got to use very little liquid if you're going to use it. Like you should use it at the same rate that you would use any kind of medium, so it's almost nothing, you know. And it's I think it's like it's just something that any kind of additive to paint is something to beware of from my perspective, you know. So it's like something. Hey, we got a good question there. I can't really read it, but
Let me see. To use in school, that was a long question.
okay.
A palette is really nothing more than a scratch sheet of paper that you used to use in school to work out of your problems, especially math problems, course science problems.
Sort of.
You,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
it's related to
It's sort of like that. I think it's a place where you hash out ideas, a palette, you know. I mean, I actually something that Nelson taught me was why not just mix on the canvas? You just take some paint, pop it up there, and mix it together, and see what it does, and figure it out. It's a whole thought process surrounding what he called color study, which everybody knows color study, but the way he did it was it's really about the chemistry of color. When you look at something and you go, oh, it's, you know, I see it as red. Well, really make it like red. Don't go for what you see. Go for what it is. You know, it's hard to explain it right here for, you know, in a short period of time. But I actually talked about it, I think, a little bit when you joined my IG live that like a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
But I don't know, color in general it's very mysterious. It doesn't have to be, because if you actually have a fixed palette that you work with,
Yeah.
and you experiment and understand how each color works, you can predict how they will mix, what your outcome will be.
One of my teachers someday told me that trust your palette,
Yeah.
not your eyes. Trust your palette, because your eyes can deceive you.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. If you look at something and then you look down and then you look back up at it, it changes a little bit. You know,
Yeah.
the chemistry of your brain. Yeah.
You get over time.
Yeah.
And the light changes. Yeah. So palette is like an instrument.
Right.
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 You have to tune it before playing.
Right. Right. And that's also why my colors always go in the same place on the palette too. It's because there's an order to that madness. And when I put the things in the right place, I work better. It's the same reason why you should set up an easel, and you should work so that it's parallel to your eyes, you know? It's if it's leaning away from you, then you're going to get all this foreshortening or elongation, and it's this distortion. You know, if you work on something that's too high above you, you're reaching up for it too much. If you work too low, you're reaching low for it. It should be right across your face, like you're feeding your face when you eat. You know?
Yeah.
It's kind of...
Let me take my list in order to continue.
Yeah.
We have already talked about the process of painting. What's your favorite color and why?
I'm looking. I really do love I'm like looking at them. I'm like, which one of you is my favorite today? Cobalt violet is a particularly beautiful color. Cobalt violet it has strength on its own, but it can really it just does a nice job of just pulling an edge off of a color of some sort. I don't even know what it's used for. I don't look at color and say, oh, you know, Viridian is used for blah blah blah. No, it's a color. I use Viridian whenever I think I need Viridian, and so I you know, yellow ochre. Oh my gosh, yellow ochre is another absolutely fantastic color. It's like have you ever taken a honeycomb out of a beehive and just like sucked on it? It's like that to me. It's like
That's when you understand why Van Gogh is his oils.
yeah,
That's why.
yeah. So I think and actually I just gave you two complementary colors, purple and yellow, or violet and yellow. So, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I saw a very how do you say a very a lot of so many a range of colors between the white and the last one, the cobalt violet. We can say that it's not a limited palette,
Right.
right? Have you ever worked on a limited
Oh yeah.
palette? Which are the advantages using a large palette
And a small one. Yeah. So especially because I instruct in my studio. I have students here. Polins Atelier is my school, and I do my work here. So I'm very used to limiting students, and I do that because I had limited myself, and I generally basically do I bring people through a series of actions to get to the Zorn palette. Ivory black, yellow ochre, a cadmium red essentially, and white. And it's interesting. I mean, you can fool around with which the white. I always get people to use lead white, and if they won't use that, then they're going to use titanium. But ivory black, it almost doesn't change depending on the company. I mean, there are differences from company to company, of course, but if they're doing it right, it's bone black. It's charred bone turned to paint. So, but then, yellow ochre, there are different yellow ochres out there, and I happen to like the Natural Pigment brand. I don't know if you know that brand. They're a fabulous brand of paint. So I use theirs, and then I actually have a lot of their paints these days. Shameless plug to it's actually called Natural Pigments is the company, but their paint line is called Rublev. It's you can give people like a little bit of a range. Which red should someone use? Should you give them something a little darker or a little lighter? Or get them to experience the differences. So even just in those like 4 options, of paint, it's incredible what Zorn could do. I mean, come on. Like, I cannot do what he did. Like, I cannot get those kinds of mixtures. I cannot even draw at all like what he did. And I whew, that guy. But you can express anything with a limited palette. You can express anything with a full palette. It's how you learn to use it. Technique, actually, this is a great moment to say this. How you use something is all about technique, right? So, what is technique? It's simply how you use something.
Yeah, how you use your resources.
Yeah, how much of this versus that? What direction is the mark making happening by? How much pressure? How sharp is the tip of that pencil? How dull is it? Is it a harder or a softer pencil? What kind of India ink are you using? What's your nib style? What brush are you choosing to use to put that mark down? Is it big? Is it small? If you need a small mark, you can use a big brush. No problem. If you want to make a big mark, you can use a small brush. You just got to do a lot of marks. But it's like, it's up to you, the individual. It's up to me. It's up to you. It's up to everybody. And I think that's what lacks a lot in training these days. So it's like a limited palette is a beautiful place to start people, and it's a beautiful place to return to too. I might look at a setup and be like, oh yeah, this has less going on, so I'm gonna make it a limited palette. But there's no reason, if you have a full palette, you can attack something that looks limited and you can find more going on in that thing that you're painting. So, you know, it's tricky.
Yeah. Um, well, mm, I think that we, in our talk, have covered all these questions. And if we lost something, well, do you prefer direct sunlight or light bulb light? Bulb light or
I definitely prefer daylight. Daylight is just more beautiful and more subtle and more delicate. But like right now, I mean, this is an artificial light on me, and it's I think that if you're going to work with artificial light, you should invest in improving the light opportunity. So like I have a soft box, if you know what that is. It's a fixture with multiple bulbs in it, and then there's a sort of a screen over it that sort of light, so that it gets softer, you know. So it looks like let me turn this there. I mean, that's on it, you know. So that's an artificially lit situation that I can appreciate. So I like that guy too. um, yeah, but I definitely will work from both, and I'll work, you know, in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. I think that the more, you know, lighting is really a huge issue. Like everything you're asking are great questions, by the way. These are excellent, and there's so much to say about all of them. But I think that the more lighting situations that we all familiarize ourselves with, the better off we are. The fewer you do, the less you understand how to adapt and how to cope. And I think that's what it really comes down
to. Well, I, my girlfriend say, "Oh man, you're already going to complete 1 hour."
I mean, I'm having a fun time, so it's like if you have other questions, I'm
like,
happy to.
That happens when we draw and when we paint. It's like a time machine.
Yeah.
When you start something, you do not know, and all of a sudden, it's not. It's at night. It's the other day. Next month.
Definitely.
The same thing here. We're having fun.
Yeah. This is great.
And well, I told you that I wanted to ask you something about the art market.
Yeah.
About the myth of the starving artist. What do you think about that?
You know, I don't have a lot of money, but I'm not starving, and I don't believe in the starving artist image. There are so many people that are far worse off than we are, and there are so many people that are far better off than we are. And I mean, I try my best not to think of myself as a starving artist, especially because I think that's a negative connotation. I don't think that, I think it yeah, but it also demeans us, doesn't it? It's a put down. Oh, you're a starving artist. You know, yeah, fuck off. You know, like it's not. I don't think it's a great thing to reinforce that kind of language. And I know it's kind of benign in a way. I mean, when people say it, I go, if you think so, and I just like, whatever. But I think that there's, you know, that is a way to actually, I think, keep us all a little bit held back from our potential or from taking us seriously. Maybe using that term starving artist as a way for a gallery to not give you as good an opportunity, you know, somehow. There's so many weird things going on out there, you know, like the art market is completely turned on its, you know, it's completely turned backwards right now from my perspective. We have a much better opportunity as artists to make a living, and it's because we have much more power. Instagram is really giving us that power. I've sold work through Instagram. My account isn't that big. It's you know, it's 3,500 people or something, but that's 3,500 more people than I was talking to 2 years ago, and I want it to get larger, and it's not because I want everyone's money. It's because I really love that people are seeing value in what I'm doing. They're finding something of interest, and I want to promote them to do better. I want to do better too, but I want everybody to do better. I mean, there's no reason why that can't happen, you know? And I don't know, I read self-help books because I think that if you read enough of them, you start to see like a connection. And there was one that I read, I can't remember the name right now, but the line that has stuck with me since I read it, since the first time I read it in the book, this is a great line. It is, I expand in abundance, success, and love every day as I inspire those around me to do the same. And I think
that's magical.
Yes. I would encourage everybody listening to us right now, and the people that are going to listen to this when you post it on YouTube, I think is what you said you put it on. I think that people should start repeating that to themselves, and they should start telling it to their loved ones and families and friends and everything. Because when you start really thinking about it, and like you had a good reaction to it right then, you know, wow, it really does, it changes something. I think that alone, like that kind of phrase that I just said, that compared to starving artist just I don't know where it went. You know, the most important thing also when you think about it, throughout this whole pandemic, you and I both are here right now. We have survived until now. We are likely to keep surviving. There's no starving artists. We're thriving. We don't thrive to our fullest potential, but we are thriving artists. We're thriving individuals. We're thriving members of a community that is an artistic community, that is a human community, that is supportive of people around us, and wanting to be helpful and encouraging. I mean, that is not a starving artist.
That's definitely
not
a starving one.
Yeah, I'm full when I say that.
Okay, Jason. I think that we cover up even more than I wrote.
Do you want me to do you want me to walk you into my hallway and show you a couple of paintings?
What did you say?
Oh, do you want me to walk you into the hallway and show you a few paintings for a minute?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yes.
You can see a little bit here. I'm going to turn the camera around. It's kind of dark in my studio, but I can show you. This is a big painting that I'm working on. This is a giant still life. Hard to see it right here, but it's all on this shelf right over here. Everything is on this shelf.
Yeah. It's an artist atelier.
Say it again?
An artist atelier.
Yeah.
L'atelier.
Yes, this is my atelier. Yeah. It's kind of dark in my studio here. I can turn the light on for a second. So, I've got a painting I'm working on over here. I've got the whole stack of things that are back here that I'm working on. Here's a great painting that I'm almost finished with. See if I can get good light on it.
Oh, what kind of varnish do you use? Damar?
I like to just use the Damar varnish is like the varnish of choice.
Yeah.
And I'll wait a while to do something to like varnish it until it's good and dry. I have used the Gamvar before. This is a setup. Actually, I set this up in case I was going to demo for you. And this is like a little bit of a start.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So I'm going to actually be painting this for my students to show them.
That's the other painting.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I start. So back to that idea of like, what does a start look like? This is just burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. And I just sort of sketch it in. And, you can see most of that's like kind of dark. So, I'm just sort of putting it in as dark shapes, and I'm not worried about perfect drawing. and just trying to get the composition and the placement.
Yeah.
And this is pretty much, well, I'm standing right around here. And,
Then you are going to paint the grisaille.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Are you going to paint over it the grisaille?
Yes,
Yeah?
the grisaille. Yeah. I will. You know,
And then you are going to put the color.
Yep.
Right?
I'll just put color right on top. It actually dried. It's funny. I did this like a couple of days ago. It already dried. But yeah, I'll paint right on top. Put color down. I'll fix the drawing. I'll arrange everything better. It's just I think it's really important. This is just placeholder. This is just telling me how high and how low and how far left and how far right I want this composition to be. That's all. And like if the proportions were way off, I'd worry about it, but it's not.
That's a good laboratory.
Yeah. Here, let me show you outside for a second. My door. This is outside my studio. So this is a few pieces.
I love that one.
This one?
Why do you put that
there? So do you know the statue called Lao Kun? It's at the Vatican. It's a statue of, this is the torso from the statue. And then let's see if the camera can pick it up. That is the head that should be on top here. So this painting is called Revelations, and it's sort of like how you reveal yourself to others. So this head, this pumpkin head, it's sort of like how we our first meeting, and we're like, "Hi, how are you?" We're smiles and we're joking and we are enjoying each other, and but our true self, which is that face, it's hard to. There we go. That face. That's the real head of the sculpture. And our true self is always hidden when we meet people, right? So that.
Do you paint on Halloween?
Say it again?
Do you paint it on Halloween?
Yeah. No, I do love pumpkins a lot. That's a charcoal drawing that's actually from when I was a student at the Florence Academy.
It is from your students.
That was mine. That was mine. And then I have all this work in the hallway that.
You have a very big place.
Yeah. So this is just the hallway outside of my studio, but you know, I can use it to hang work up at. So things like that. Like that.
Yeah, it shows you the traditional way, and the other, the other way to just open your imagination, your creativity. Right. Oh, I love that one.
Yeah, this is a copy of a Rubens drawing, but I did it in oil paint. His was in red chalk, I believe. Or like.
What do you think that is most advantage when you made a master copy?
I think that it's important to do because you are deciphering a little bit of how you think this was done, and in doing that, you know, it's already been solved. So you're just trying to understand how you can solve something. I think it's a really important. I think it's a really important skill to experience over and over. I'm doing a. Oh, I can show you. Where's the one that I started? Sorry, hold on. There you go. I started on Velasquez.
Oh.
So this is a master copy that I'm working on.
Very, very, very beautiful.
Yeah. I'm going to sort of scrape it down and work back into it. See what I can do. Yeah.
I think that the big challenge there is to learn from the painter, from the masters,
Yep.
and then remind it when you are going to do your original one.
Yeah, I agree. I think,
Because as you say, you have all the information there, the decisions had been taken, but when you when it's once turns, so it's like when you block, your mind is empty.
yeah,
How do you? How did Velasquez resolve that problem? Huh?
right. Yeah, I agree. Or look at, you know, when you do a master copy, you're seeing their compositional choices. Then when you go and set something up, use it in your own way. You know, not to mimic them, but to show reverence for them or to show respect to them, but also to solve something how you want it solved. You know, they were innovative for their time, and we can be innovative in our time, and we can learn from the past. We don't have to repeat it. So do something that's true to you, that you learned because you paid attention to the history that we all come from artistically. It's everyone's history. It's the one history of the planet that we all own equally. The history of art is equally owned through all of humanity. It doesn't matter that I'm not an Asian person in the planet. I still look and am so in awe of Asian art. What they did was absolutely amazing. They think differently, they act differently, they express differently, and that's human. That's human activity, you know. It's
So, Jason, let me ask you two more questions, and
sure.
we are. In order to what you say that we have to create and innovate right now, what do you think about digital painting?
I love it. I really do. I can't do it at all. Um, I have an iPad and I have Procreate, and I've got my Apple Pencil. I'm like making stick figures. I love it. I think it's great. It is. I think that just like photography, it's separate from manual painting and using actual paint. It is not the same thing as painting, nor should it be. But it doesn't invalidate it or diminish it. I think that there's so many things you can do with digital painting that with actual paint, you either can't, or it just takes far too long or something. I don't know, you know?
Yeah, because there's a big difference between a subtracted palette
Yeah.
and an additive palette that is light.
Yeah.
Color, organic color cannot compete with light.
Right.
So,
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we're looking at the physical paint, which is light hitting it and reflecting off of it versus like the emitted light from the iPad or a screen or something. Yeah, it's totally different.
and it's a little bit frustrating because you want that kind of whiteness, and yellow is light, and you put a lot of, obviously that's not the way how you can paint that and make beauty
Right.
in that, because if you're white,
Right.
you can.
Yeah, I know. You know, actually, I was just talking about that. Like with physical paint, we actually are limited by the range at which we can make something bright or dark. More bright than dark. So we have to take advantage of how the darkness works to expand the range of light in what we express. And I think that's very important to remember, because it's just not the same as reality. It's just not. Even artificial light has a greater range than paint does. So, yeah.
And the last question.
Sure.
Well, it's a two question in one. Do you think beauty matters, and why? Why beauty matters?
Beauty does matter, because if you can't find things that are beautiful to you, then it's a diminishment in your opportunity to express. And I think that's also why it matters. I would not define to anyone what beauty is. I would define what beauty is to me. But I think that when we look around, you and I, we're going to it's so much about what we think is beautiful is going to cross. I know it. There is a universal element of beauty. And honestly, I think that the older I get, I'm not that old. I'm 400, but I'm not that old. No. I'm 49. I'm not that old. But I've started realizing just how beautiful everything truly is. I mean, you just stop for a second, you look around, and it's just like, are you kidding me? Look at how beautiful that piece of wood that fell off a tree is. Look at how beautiful, like, every single person walking by me is. Look at how beautiful the sun is right now. Just the light coming across the sky. Oh my, it's just earth-shattering. If we didn't have beauty, we would be in trouble. I mean, all in all, when you think about it, the planet itself, it's about thriving and surviving. It's not about death and destruction. Our planet is not about death and destruction. That's an element that needs to be there because there's always opposites. There's never just one side. If you didn't recognize ugly, you wouldn't recognize beauty. If you didn't recognize sadness, you wouldn't know happiness. You need it. We need it. We need all of the emotions that we are capable of feeling, and we need to feel them to make use of them.
So we can say that painting teaches us how to see the world.
Yes.
And to catch beauty when maybe no one sees anything, and even to see ugliness in a subjective way, right?
Yes.
But painting open our eyes.
Yes.
We can conclude that.
Yes. Completely. Completely.
So Jason, thank you very much. I'm going to save this video, then upload this on other platforms, maybe YouTube, Facebook, other media. For the people that join us, thank you very much. I hope that you wanted later to create this kind of community, to talk about painting, to join us, to see our work. And I'm going to say this in Spanish.
Please.
Muchas gracias a quienes nos acompañaron. Estamos terminando una entrevista con Jason Polins de Boston. Prometo que la voy a subtitular para quienes no entiendan inglés. La voy a subir a las otras plataformas como YouTube, pues aquí va a quedar en Instagram y entre otras. Y ojalá pues se animen a unirse a una comunidad de pintura, de pintores que nos atrevamos a pensar en la pintura. No solo sirve para decorar un muro, sino nos alimenta mentalmente también. Y cuenta la historia, una comunidad, realiza una inteligencia colectiva, etc. Entonces, muchas gracias, Jason, and thank you very much. See you next time.
Yeah, absolutely. Muchas gracias. So, and yeah, I really enjoyed this. I'm so glad that we got in touch, and this is just a fabulous opportunity for us to connect, and I look forward to us communicating ASAP.
Okay, man.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Chao. Bueno, ¿me ayudas a grabarlo en el celu, por favor? Sí, ven que después hago un daño. Todavía sigo en vivo. Sí.
No, pero finalizo.
Dale, se fue.
¿Ya qué?
Ya se fue, ya.
No. No.
Sí.
Ya. Ah, ya sé por qué.